In the icy shadow of Jupiter lies Europa, a world that at first glance looks like a lifeless frozen sphere. Its surface, crisscrossed with endless scars and brownish ridges, shines brighter than our moon. There are no mountains or deep craters disturbing its smooth ice. This calm, frozen facade hides something beneath it. What if Europa holds the most important secret of the solar system? Many spacecraft have gazed upon Europa, from the first images taken by Voyager in 1979 to more recent flybys. Each glance revealed a strangely youthful face. Unlike our moon, pockmarked with craters, Europa's plains appear utterly flat, like a huge ice pack, recalls one of the Voyager project scientists, amazed at the absence of impact scars. Something is resurfacing Europa, erasing the ancient craters. The ice itself seems to be in motion, as if driven by a hidden force. Could a secret ocean beneath the surface be the cause? In this documentary, we'll journey through the clues and mysteries of this distant moon, fractured ice, a hidden ocean, sources of dark energy. And they all lead to one persistent question: could life thrive beneath the ice? Let's start with the fact that Europa's icy shell is far from featureless. On the contrary, it's carved with long, winding cracks and marked with chaotic patterns. Dark lines, some stretching over 1,000 miles, cut across the moon's face like fractures on a colossal frozen lake. These lines, known as lineae, sometimes run parallel or intersect, forming a global web. Amazingly, when studying Voyager and Galileo images, scientists noticed that opposing sides of some cracks matched up, like puzzle pieces. It's as if the icy crust split apart and shifted, with dark materials seeping up to fill the gaps. Broken chunks of ice rafted into new locations, much like ice flows drift and freeze in Earth's polar oceans. In some parts of Europa, chaos reigns. There are regions the size of entire cities where the surface appears shattered and refrozen. Blocks of ice are tilted and rotated, surrounded by hummocky terrain and refrozen slush. Scientists fittingly call this terrain chaos. It resembles an ice mass partially melted from below, then frozen again into a jumble of layers. These disordered blocks, like massive icebergs, hint that warm, soft ice or even liquid water rose from beneath. In other areas, dome-shaped bulges rise upward, while pits mark potential sites where ice has sunk. These features suggest an active ice shell, possibly rising and falling over a hidden ocean. The question arises: what makes the ice move as if it's alive? We observe similar parallels even on Earth. In our Antarctic seas, ice plates drift, crack, and pile up over the ocean. On Europa, we suspect a similar ice interaction, but driven not by wind or current, but by forces from within. Evidence of subsurface influences everywhere. Smooth plains and few craters suggest that some process is continually refreshing the surface. Could it be cryovolcanism, where slushy water oozes out and refreezes, or settling and shifting of the ice shell floating on a layer of liquid? By the 1990s, scientists increasingly believed these surface clues pointed to a momentous discovery: an ocean beneath the ice. The idea of an ocean inside Europa moved from speculation to reality by the late 20th century. NASA's Galileo spacecraft, orbiting Jupiter in the 1990s, carried instruments that probed Europa's secrets up close. With every flyby, Galileo confirmed more hints of a hidden sea. It measured the moon's gravity and found its density and moment of inertia matched a thick shell of water ice covering a rocky interior. Moreover, Galileo detected something strange in Europa's magnetic environment. As the probe flew past, Jupiter's powerful magnetic field was disrupted in the space around the Moon. The best explanation? Europa was responding with its own induced magnetic field, one created by currents in a massive conductor beneath the surface. Given what we know of the Moon's composition, the likely conductor is a global ocean of salty water. Cameras and spectrometers also supported the ocean theory. Galileo's images showed specific patterns on the surface that only made sense if the outer ice could decouple from the interior. For example, the longest cracks did not align with where they should have been if the crust were firmly anchored to the core, but they matched exactly with a scenario where the crust could slide over a liquid layer beneath. Additionally, Europa's two largest impact scars feature concentric ring structures, as though an asteroid had pierced the ice and struck something softer below. All of these signs pointed to one conclusion. Beneath the Moon's icy shell lies a layer of liquid water. But how can a moon so far from the Sun contain liquid water? The answer came from understanding Europa's interaction with Jupiter. It exists in a gravitational tug-of-war with Jupiter and neighboring moons. As it orbits, immense tidal forces stretch and compress its interior, flexing the crust by up to 30 yards. This constant bending generates internal friction, like kneading dough or rubbing hands together to create heat. The friction provides a steady energy source, and it prevents the interior liquid from freezing. Essentially, Jupiter's gravity is Europa's furnace. Calculations show this tidal heating is more than sufficient to maintain a deep global ocean beneath the icy shell, which is estimated to be about 9 to 15 miles thick. Beneath this shell, the ocean may reach depths of around 60 miles, holding more than twice the volume of all of Earth's oceans combined. Today, the existence of a subsurface ocean on Europa is widely accepted within the scientific community. It's now often classified as an ocean world. It's believed that its icy crust floats above a salty sea, beneath which likely lies a rocky seabed and a metallic core. The presence of this ocean opens up the potential for intriguing geology and possibly biology. Essentially, Europa's ice is not a static shell. It's a dynamic, shifting lid atop a hidden ocean water, and warmed by Jupiter's gravitational pull. If a dark ocean hides beneath Europa's ice, the next question is, what kind of energy could sustain it, especially if life is present? Sunlight cannot reach the depths. It's blocked by miles of ice and lies in perpetual darkness. Yet life, as we know it, requires energy. On Earth's surface, nearly all ecosystems are powered by sunlight. However, deep in the oceans thrive another realm, independent of sunlight. Around hydrothermal vents on the seafloor, quirky and downright bizarre organisms live off of chemical energy. From these vents gush superheated water, rich in minerals and chemicals, which specialized microbes convert into food. Towering black smoker vents teem with tube worms, mollusks, and blind crabs, a whole community nourished by the Earth's inner heat. Could Europa have its own hydrothermal oasis? Planetary scientists believe this is possible and even likely. Beneath the Moon's ocean lies a rocky mantle and a core. The rock is constantly flexed and heated by tidal forces just like its ice, and this could lead to geological activity on the seafloor. If parts of Europa's seafloor are hot enough, water interacting with the warm rock could erupt as hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, just as they do along Earth's mid-ocean ridges. New computer models suggest that low-temperature hydrothermal vents could exist on the dark ocean floors of moons like Europa for billions of years. In other words, even without a fiery volcanic core, internal heat could drive vent systems that last over geological timescales. These vents would provide both heat and a chemical buffet, exactly the kind of nourishment simple life could thrive on. They release hydrogen-rich fluids and nutrients, creating chemical gradients that microbes could use as energy sources. Such environments are considered one of the possible cradles of life on early Earth. Unlike the dramatic black smokers that require intense volcanism, Europa might host gentler, warm vents, which actually circulate much more water on Earth and may last far longer. The key point is that its ocean floor need not be a volcanic hellscape. It tickles the imagination. Could life dwell in the pitch-black sea of Europa? But the essence is this. When searching for life beyond Earth, scientists have long drawn up a list of intriguing places. Mars, with its ancient rivers and lakes, once seemed like an obvious target. Saturn's moon, Titan, boasts methane lakes and a dense atmosphere. Exotic, but perhaps too cold and chemically alien for Earth-like life. In recent years, the search for extraterrestrial life has shifted from Mars to Europa, and for a good reason. Europa hits the trifecta of habitability, water, energy, and the right chemistry. First, water is the essential solvent for life as we know it. This moon has plenty. In fact, it's the wettest known world in the solar system. Beneath its crust lies an ocean that potentially holds twice as much liquid water as Earth. Second, energy. Life needs a power source. Europa's icy cover lacks sunlight, but as we've seen, tidal heating provides internal warmth, and potential hydrothermal vents supply chemical energy. What's more, Jupiter's radiation plays a paradoxical role. It bombards the moon's surface ice, splitting molecules and producing oxidants like oxygen and hydrogen peroxide. These oxidants could migrate downward into the ocean, feeding microbes in the dark. According to recent estimates, Europa's surface produces about 1,000 tons of oxygen daily through radiation chemistry, and that's enough to support 1 million people for 24 hours. Third, chemistry. The building blocks of life, such as carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, they must be present. Europa formed with a share of these common elements, and additional organic material likely arrived over time via comet and asteroid impacts. Studies suggest its subsurface ocean is likely salty and rich in minerals. In fact, spectrometers have detected surface compounds hinting at its chemistry. For example, ordinary salt, or sodium chloride, appears to be present on parts of the crust, giving it a yellowish tint, which suggests the ocean may resemble Earth's salty water in composition. Also, the JWST recently detected carbon dioxide ice in the young geological regions. This is strong evidence that carbon from the ocean is reaching the surface. It appears all the ingredients for life's chemistry, from water to organics, are present. And now compare Europa with its competitors. Mars today is a frozen desert with little liquid water. Enceladus, a tiny moon of Saturn, has a subsurface ocean and even active geysers, and in fact, Enceladus is also high on the list of candidates for life, but Enceladus's ocean is smaller, and perhaps life would have a harder time emerging in such a tiny world. Titan has an internal water ocean and an abundance of organic molecules on the surface, but its frigid hydrocarbon lakes are a very alien environment for life. Ganymede and Callisto, other large moons of Jupiter, likely have deep oceans, but their ice shells are thicker and less active, possibly limiting the exchange of nutrients. By contrast, Europa seems to strike the right balance. A large, long-lived ocean, active geology for nutrient circulation, and a steady energy supply. According to Kurt Niebuhr, NASA's lead scientist for outer planet exploration, quote, "Europa is the most likely place to look for life beyond Earth today. It meets the requirements for habitability, better than almost any other place in the solar system. So, we suspect the presence of a deep ocean. We talk about energy and nutrients, and we dream of life in this alien sea. But how far could that life have developed? So far, we've been cautious in our speculation, microbes, perhaps simple organisms. But one cannot help but ask a more extravagant question. What if we're not the first intelligent beings in the solar system? What if there's an entire biosphere beneath Europa's ice? Maybe even a civilization hidden in the dark waters. This idea has inspired science fiction writers for decades, and yet, as a thought experiment, it captivates and haunts us. Think of the possibilities. Europa's ocean has been stable for billions of years, enough time for evolution to branch in strange directions. In constant night, living organisms might develop acute senses tuned to electric signals or pressure waves. Could complex creatures like fish or cephalopods roam those pitch-black depths? Could they have even developed intelligence and built a society beneath this icy canopy, completely invisible to the rest of the universe? If so, they might watch their sun glowing blue through the ceiling, never seeing the stars. However, until we look inside, we can't know for sure. The next step is to get closer, to smell those breathing cracks and taste that ocean spray. And in that regard, we're making progress. In recent years, Europa has given us direct signs of its hidden ocean, fleeting sighs from beneath the ice. Astronomers pointed the Hubble Space Telescope in that direction and got a stunning surprise. Faint plumes of vapor rising from the moon's surface. In 2012, Hubble observed ultraviolet glows around Europa's south pole, indicating that molecules were being ejected and split into hydrogen and oxygen. The simplest explanation, said Lawrence Roth, a lead researcher from the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, is, quote, water vapor erupted from plumes on the surface of Europa. If that's true, Europa would be only the second known moon after Enceladus to actively shoot its subsurface ocean into space. These breathing cracks seem to act like geysers or cryovolcanoes. Hubble's findings suggest the plumes are intermittent. Interestingly, they were spotted when the moon was at its farthest point from Jupiter, not its closest. This matches a model where tidal stresses on Europa vary. When the moon is most stretched, cracks in the ice open and release pressure, spewing vapor. And when it moves closer and tidal forces ease, the cracks clamp shut. In other words, Europa inhales and exhales on an orbital schedule. The plumes are estimated to rise 120 miles, forming delicate sprays of water that quickly fall back to the surface. Strong gravity prevents most of the water from escaping into space. Soon after came corroborating evidence. In 2018, scientists reanalyzed old data from NASA's Galileo probe and found that Galileo likely flew through a plume in 1997 without even realizing it. For about 3 minutes during one close pass, the spacecraft's instruments registered sudden changes. The magnetic field shifted, and the amount of charged particles surged, consistent with flying through a cloud of ionized water from an eruption. This added confidence that Europa does indeed occasionally vent water. Today we have Hubble's remote sensing data and Galileo's in situ observations, different puzzle pieces pointing to the same conclusion. So, what are these plumes? Imagine cracks in the southern polar region acting like vents, and when internal pressure builds, perhaps from a pocket of water or slush beneath the ice, they rupture, releasing vapor and possibly icy particles. Essentially, Cryogeological activity is happening on the Moon, a frozen version of a volcanic eruption. These findings electrified the scientific community. A plume provides a direct channel from the hidden ocean to the surface, and that raises a thrilling question. What else is coming out of those cracks? Just vapor or something more? We know the main component is water vapor, but could the plumes carry other ingredients from the ocean? On Saturn's moon Enceladus, similar geysers eject water with salts, organics, or even microscopic grains from the seafloor. Could Europa's plumes also contain salts or organic molecules from its ocean? Hubble's instruments weren't powerful enough to detect complex substances in the moon's thin plume. They only confirmed the presence of water. But scientists suspect that if we could capture and analyze the breath of these geysers, we'll find more than just H2O. Maybe tiny salt or clay particles, maybe simple organic compounds, or even cells, if they exist. The idea that something else might be mixed with Europa's vapor is reason enough to send new missions. These breathing cracks are essentially offering free samples from the inner ocean of this distant world. All we have to do is fly through and collect the evidence. So if living organisms inhabit Europa's ocean, then the plume could carry chemical traces of their presence. What might these traces look like? Possibly as certain organic molecules like complex hydrocarbons or specific ratios of gases, for example, an unexpected excess of methane alongside hydrogen, as observed on Enceladus, and interpreted as a potential sign of microbial activity. At the very least, the detection of life's building blocks in the plumes would be a huge clue. What do we know for sure at this point? Europa's surface is covered with intriguing substances. Galileo's spectrometers detected compounds such as sulfur dioxide, likely formed from sulfur or Io's internal chemistry, and hydrogen peroxide, which forms when ice is exposed to radiation. They also found materials that weren't just simple ice. They seemed to contain salts or organic substances. Europa's trailing hemisphere, constantly bombarded by plasma, has a reddish-brown coloration. Scientists believe that the unknown molecules giving this region its mottled red appearance could be oxidized salts or complex organics, either originating from the ocean or formed by radiation. In 2023, the James Webb Space Telescope detected carbon dioxide concentrated in a region of chaotic terrain, compelling evidence that it was sourced from the churning subsurface ocean. This also clearly tells us that carbon, which is a necessary element for life, exists in Europa's ocean and indeed reaches the surface. What about organic compounds specifically? On Enceladus, when NASA's Cassini spacecraft flew through the plumes, it discovered a variety of organic substances, including fairly complex ones, as well as dihydrogen, a sign of hydrothermal reactions. We don't yet have such detailed measurements for Europa, but if similar processes occur there, we can expect to find simple organics like methane, methanol, formaldehyde, or even amino acids or other complex molecules in frozen form in the ejecta. One thrilling idea is that any microbes in Europa's ocean might be frozen into ice grains at the moment the plume water reaches the frigid vacuum and solidifies. These microbes, or remnants of organic cells, could then be preserved on the surface. Essentially, the plumes could be scattering evidence of life, if it exists, across the moon's surface, where a future lander or flyby probe could detect them. Scientists have suggested that local geology might also actively transport material from the ocean to the subsurface, not only via plumes, but also through the formation of new ice crust in chaotic terrain. If life produces biochemical byproducts, say specific fatty molecules like lipids from cell membranes, they could end up in salt deposits as the water freezes. Recent studies even suggest that some lipid molecules might survive the journey and be detectable by a spacecraft's instruments. So far, the first signs of life on Europa remain hypothetical. We haven't discovered any definitive signs of living organisms, but we have found conditions favorable to life: water, chemistry, energy. We found intriguing substances like peroxide and CO2, and possibly common salt, and that suggests an ocean similar to Earth's. These findings keep hope alive. Astrobiologists have hypothesized possible ecological scenarios. Perhaps microbial mats cover warm rocks on the ocean floor, feeding off chemicals from hydrothermal vents. Slightly more complex life, the analog of brine shrimp or tube worms, could graze on these microbes. Excitingly, we may soon be able to test these hypotheses. Humanity has already sent its next messengers to the realm of Jupiter to finally explore this mysterious oceanic world in situ. 2 major missions are set to make history. NASA's Europa Clipper and the European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer are simply JUICE. Europa Clipper is the first dedicated mission to Europa. Its robotic explorer is designed to study whether the moon could support life. Launched October 14, 2024, Clipper will travel for several years and is expected to arrive at Jupiter around 2030. Instead of going into orbit around Europa itself, it will orbit Jupiter and make about 50 close flybys of the moon. During each pass, it'll fly over different parts of Europa, sometimes passing just 15 miles above the surface, close enough to taste the ejecta from any plumes. On board is a powerful suite of 9 scientific instruments, the most advanced ever sent to the outer solar system. These instruments are specifically designed to map the ice from a distance, sense the ocean, and analyze the chemical composition. High-resolution cameras, the Europa imaging system, will capture ridges, fractures, and chaotic regions of the moon in stunning detail, revealing features as small as a few yards and producing stereo images of the icy landscape. A thermal imager will scan for warm spots on the surface, possibly where water is near the surface or where recent eruptions have left warm ice. An ultraviolet spectrograph will analyze Europa's extremely thin atmosphere and any gases from plumes, identifying elements and molecules by their spectral signatures. Crucially, Europa Clipper will carry instruments to study the ice. The radar sounder, Reason, will send radio waves into the crust and listen for echoes. This will reveal the structure of the ice shell, identify layers, detect brine or water pockets, and maybe even see the top of the ocean if the ice isn't too thick. A set of magnetometers, together with a plasma instrument, will precisely measure the moon's induced magnetic field. This will help confirm the ocean's presence and determine its depth and salinity. Tiny fluctuations in the magnetic field readings as Europa moves through Jupiter's field will show how conductive, and therefore how salty, the ocean is and how deep the conductive layer lies. Another instrument, called the Gravity Radio Science Experiment, will track subtle changes in the spacecraft's trajectory during flybys and help to figure out the moon's internal mass redistribution, revealing ice thickness and ocean density as a result. Clipper is also essentially a flying chemistry lab. On board is the mass spectrometer MASSPEX, designed to directly analyze particles and gases near Europa. When the spacecraft flies through a plume or a faint cloud of molecules kicked up from the surface by radiation, MASSPEX will collect these atoms and molecules, sort them by mass, and determine what they are. Water vapor, CO2, sulfur compounds, organics, all will be measured if present. Alongside MASSPEX, the Surface Dust Analyzer, SUDA, will capture tiny grains of ice and dust ejected from the moon. Each microscopic grain, when it hits the detector, will vaporize and reveal its makeup. SUDA has a unique ability to detect salts and complex molecules trapped inside those grains. If a plume or surface impact sends a bit of ocean material into space, SUDA and MASSPEX together can determine its chemical recipe, whether it's rich in sodium chloride, full of organics, or something unexpected. In essence, Europa Clipper will let us get a taste of Europa's ocean without having to drill through the ice. And the data gathered will answer key questions like this: how thick is the ice shell, and is it active? Radar and imaging will show whether the ice is partially melted and whether there are newly formed vents or fractures. Is the ocean global, and what is its depth and salinity? Magnetometry and gravimetry will provide that picture. Now, what's the composition of the surface and any plumes? Spectrometers will check for organics, salts, signs of hydrothermal chemistry. Are there places where ice and ocean are currently interacting? Thermal and surface mapping might reveal regions of recent upwelling or warmer ice, like the chaotic terrains thought to be above rising plumes of water. All of this will help answer the ultimate question: is Europa's ocean a habitable environment? Europa Clipper won't be able to directly detect life, but it will give us a definitive assessment of the moon's potential to support life, and possibly indirect evidence pointing towards its presence. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the European Space Agency has launched the JUICE project, a mission to broadly explore Jupiter's icy moons. Launched April 14, 2023, the spacecraft embarked on an 8-year journey and is expected to arrive in 2031. Its main target? Ganymede, where it will eventually go into orbit, but during its journey, it'll perform 2 close flybys of Europa. During these brief encounters, JUICE will complement the work of the Europa Clipper, even though it carries a different set of instruments. JUICE's toolkit includes high-resolution cameras, spectrometers, a laser altimeter, subsurface radar, magnetometers, and plasma sensors. 10 instruments in total, ready to study Jupiter's moons. During the Europa flybys, JUICE will take the detailed images of specific regions at resolutions of just a few tens of yards, allowing us to see new areas never observed before. Its RIME radar will probe the moon's crust, similarly to Clipper's radar, but at a different frequency, and this potentially will reach different depths. Its spectrometers will analyze the surface composition and may confirm the presence of salts or organics from a different perspective. Instruments for studying particles and magnetic fields will investigate the surrounding environment, confirming the presence of an induced magnetic field and perhaps detecting plume particles or changes in the plasma around Europa. The synergy between the two missions will provide a multi-layered investigation. By the mid-2030s, we will have a tremendous amount of new data. These missions are precursors to even bolder endeavors. If Europa Clipper finds compelling evidence, let's say signs that the ocean is full of organic chemistry, or something that could be a biosignature, the next logical step would be to send a lander. NASA has already developed a concept for a Europa lander mission, which could drill a short distance into the ice or scoop up fresh plume deposits for direct analysis. In the more distant future, we might even imagine a probe that melts through the ice and swims in the ocean beneath, or an underwater robot exploring the moon's abyss. In the coming decade, Europa will stop being just a distant, icy dot. Instead, it will become a place with landscapes and possibly even a catalog of its ocean's ingredients. The mystery of life beneath the ice will begin to give way to evidence. Will we find simple organic matter, complex chemistry, or even signs of microbial life? Or will the ocean turn out to be extremely salty or oxygen poor and less suitable for life than we hoped? The adventure of revealing the truth about this ocean world is just beginning, and the most exciting discoveries may be hidden beneath the next crack in the ice.